Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Thoughts. It's really funny. That almost sounds like a musical note to me. So tonight I thought I would loop back on the UAPs because something occurred to me that sort of throws a wrench into the notion that the UAP UFO invasion could be faked at the level that we have conceived of it. And it has to do with at least one thing. And I'm going to try to, bounce off of this concept for other thought processes that have also occurred to me about this whole thing. Because we just did an episode about it, outlining the sort of how they would have to run the script of the invasion, both if it were real and if it were fake. Obviously, most of the juicy details are in the concept that it's fake. A couple things here I want to discuss. One, being an American, it is always conceived that the greatest level of technology out of any country since Germany's gone from the 40s has been out of America. Everyone else chases America. Now, I'm saying that because that's the hubris of American citizens. Whether or not it's exclusively true, I don't know. I mean, I watch documentaries on how jets are made and boats are made, and, various countries will come up with a model here and there, but we're just addicts over here. So if I take the UAP fake invasion to a logistical headquarters, it does center in my mind somewhere in the United States empire, if you will. They could be operating it from many islands and then many oceans and from mountaintops and all that kind of stuff. But that presents a major difficulty. Maybe. Which is America creates this global invasion because it can't be just an American thing, right? You can't have them just flying over America. It wouldn't make any logistical sense that an alien would pick some random plot of ground, which is nowhere near the majority of the land in this country, or in this world, and just be flying all over American citizens. So it's going to have to fly over every continent, which opens them up for massive problems. First and foremost would be the logistical problem of the political empires that are around the world, all the European nations, Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, all South America, all Eurasia, including Russia and China. Africa, there's probably not a lot of super technology there. Again, they've been gagged for centuries, never to have modern things. But if one of these little craft tries to fly over Russia and it's fake, meaning if you shot it down, you'd open it up easily and then there's nothing in it but, made in America inside, or some very, very modern equipment in there. Integrated circuits from the real world, fiber optics, fiber technologies, whatever. Fingerprints from humans. But the political sense of do you tell Russia, does Russia get in on this UAP fake invasion? Because they can get a concentrated government, which they don't even want. They don't want a new world order. But boy, do they got weapons over there. There's some smart cookies. Does China want a new world order that would get rid of the CCP and they'd have to answer to European standards, which means the concentration camps goes away, which means that harvesting organs from prisoners that are still alive goes away. Falun Gong could be practiced. I don't think so. So that's a huge challenge. One, the crafts can get shot down and exposed. And two, what would be the critical mass in order to fly these vehicles? And unlike the moon missions where you can actually have just literally a few dozen people involved with the hoax, as opposed to the prophesized, it'll be 1,000 people, 10,000 people. Nah, not with the moon missions, okay? As soon as the Saturn V takes off, everyone's told where it goes. They're looking at equipment that doesn't even have a pixel on a monitor yet, and they're being told where it went. So all of it's fake after it goes out of your sight. But this is different. This would be coordinating airspace in a really major way. And have you ever noticed one thing? I've been re-reviewing the interviews that have been given, and after I did my episode, I bumped into more I'd never seen. And one of the pilots said he saw one every single day for 2 years. Really, dude? You saw one every day? All right, okay. Little logistical problem. And, he could be technically telling the truth, and he could be obviously in the dark. If I was the government or the shadow government trying to create this, I'd want to have my most loyal sort of mask-breathing guy flying the plane who's like, I read the history books. I know what happened in this world. And I'd fly it around that dude a lot so that he would come back genuinely, like Rod Serling said, pre-censored to believe exactly what he saw at the window. Never theorizing anything else, right? And the only thing they say is, we didn't know if it could be Russian, could be Chinese technology, but I don't think it is, that sort of thing. Plus, you have to also remember, any object that comes from another planet is going to have a different radioactive frequency than all the mass on this planet. And so you could easily tell whether or not it's from another world. Isn't it interesting that all the sightings seem to be over military installations or in the escort corridors and the sky where our fighter pilots are flying around? It's where our Navy ships are. It's never over Huntington Beach, never over Los Angeles, never over New York City. I'm talking about daytime, easy to see craft. Apparently, these aliens, let's just go with their little story. They have lost all of their resistance and whatever first or prime directive, instincts that they had before, where we're only going to do this here and there. It's only a farmer in Oklahoma. It makes absolutely no sense, and it's almost reverse engineering that this is a hoax, people. And yes, there are UFO sightings all over the planet all the time. But the Tic Tac should be seen right now. If they're simply flying around all the military vehicles, it makes no sense that they're just sitting there showing off in the ocean. And there's a new one in a naval base, again, military. It's easier to launch them. It's easier to control them. You control the airspace with a bunch of Top Gun fighters flying off the coast of California here from Catalina to San Diego. I think that accounts for at least 3 of the major sightings. Right, you're literally escorting them with your fighter planes, whether they know what they are or not. I have to say, too, just instinctually speaking, you give me your opinion. When you listen to the voice reactions of the UFOs being sighted, it seems a little disingenuous to me. In fact, one of the ones, and I just don't grow up around this whole kind of thing. I mean, I grew up around the military guys up until I was probably 13. And then dudes that, my dad's buddies and all that kind of stuff. You see a UFO. You can call it a UAP all you want. It's a UFO. According to you. And it's real. And you say, oh my gosh, some guy says on the mic. I don't think you say that. I think you lay out a series of expletives of excitement. It is going to take you to the very maximum of your linguistic capabilities to describe what you're seeing. And yeah, I know they're trained and we're all supposed to think they're Top Gun pilots from the movie. But you watch the videos coming out of the Middle East where they're gunning down people, blowing up buildings, and it's a MF here and Holy S there and GD there. They're being real human beings, and all they're doing is blowing the crap out of things. I say that with tongue in cheek. But seeing something that would be that's like literally few human beings in the world have ever seen, and you're suddenly able to pull the brakes on your expression, seems a little like made for TV, don't it? Well, don't say motherfucker, because then it can't get on ABC in 60 minutes. I believe there's one video where there's some bleeping out, but I mean, come on. The pilots do believe, especially the 2 that saw the Tic Tac. It was a female Top Gun pilot that looks like Sigourney Weaver, and there's the other gentleman. And I fully respect, they're going out there, and you look in their eyes, and the woman seemed to be almost disturbed by it, excited but kind of disturbed. because she's sitting on this going, it certainly feels like I'm on the precipice of the whole world changing. And I saw it with my own eyes. And so it's kind of like when you have a near-death experience and you see the other side and you come back, you're like, oh my God, everyone's a moron who doesn't believe in the afterlife. I mean, they just are. I saw it. I was there. I came back. It matches everything I've ever heard my whole life from other people. So now I know they weren't lying. But the idea that these things aren't flying over major cities all day long because they seem to not give a crap whether or not they're being seen these days, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. The whole idea that the U.S. military is the only thing that ever sees these things. Like in bulk, man. It should fly over, I don't know, some major event. Just literally, it's Monday morning. And let's say a UFO comes up the 405, 101. The 405. It's a big-ass highway in here in California. At times it has 8 lanes on both sides. It's packed constantly, and it just goes zip, 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 zip. Kinds of sound effects for you today. And then it just curves over Los Angeles and flies in a big loop. Watch it happen now. And then just takes off in the sky. Everyone gets to see it. 4 or 5 million people see it. There are a few 100,000 cell phone videos of this thing with another 100,000, if not 500,000, if not 1 million photographs of it. Photographers who are out shooting things that day just happen to look up and go, oh my God, and start shooting it. You could be on a set of a movie, man, outside, and for whatever reason, someone's got a steady cam. Someone has a mobile camera that's not on a fixed tripod where it's all bolted to the ground without a swivel capability. And they just yank that camera and go, whoa, and there it is. Everyone sees it from different angles. Why hasn't that happened one time in history? We had the Foo Fighter thing. That was pretty interesting. That old video, I think it's over Los Angeles, right? Where something, all the spotlights were going to the same thing. They obviously, if they were real, okay. The other thing is that, if they were real, you could not construe at a later point that they're hostile with the current behavior that they have engaged in. We've got tales of them flying over missile silos and deactivating the missiles inside. How you do that, I don't know. Do you just burn out all the circuitry of the EMP? Do you take the radioactive isotope and simply stabilize it somehow? So they've always been attributed to kind things, except for Whitley Strieber's anal probing thing. So the other one is you do have, and I do think, again, that there's a lot of countries that are claiming to have nuclear weapons. Because Russia, after the coup in 92, would probably sell you a nuke for nothing. There's a documentary on the mobsters out of Florida who were trying to buy a submarine to traffic drugs in, and it was going to cost them some measly amount of money, like $20 million for a military sub. And who knows what they were going to sell them, but it was also, do you want a nuke? It's been in movies, it's been in documentaries that you could get one of these things. But, whether or not India, Pakistan actually have one, all right, who knows? Bury a bunch of TNT, fire it off, take a look. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe put a bunch of uranium on top of it just to get yourself a nice radioactive signature for the sensors. North Korea, I don't think they have one. The main thing about North Korea not having a nuke is you'd have some videos, man. They love videos. They love showing off what they do. Every tourist that came to visit North Korea, instead of being shown military hardware from 70 years ago claiming victory, they would have looped videos on every single display showing a nuke going off underground. Now, they could do one above ground as well. Yeah, you're not supposed to after 73. They don't care. It's their land. They don't care. But they don't even create the implosion thing. It's just to create more fear-mongering. But you mean to tell me that you're going to be able to fly anything over Russia who doesn't want to have anything to do with these bankers? They have been kicking those folks out like crazy. There's an all points bulletin for George Soros. If he's caught in the country, he's to be detained They're not a part of that game. That's why they're demonized all the time by one party in the United States. Who works for them? The bankers. As far as the EU and Britain going along with it, most definitely. And of course, Canada, Australia, New Zealand would all be involved in that because it's all the same network. Depending on who's in control of the United States of America, obviously, there's a faction here that would want that hardcore. The rumor, let's review. The rumor supposedly came out of, 1978 conversation with Werner von Braun. That's where it sort of is seated in most conspiracy circles. He had told his assistant, I don't know. I heard her described as like a secretary. I don't think that's the case because she's got a PhD, so she must have been some assistant. That was going to be the thing. And then, of course, it would take a long time to sort of put all the logistics together, get the vehicles together. At the same time, we've got Hollywood educating everyone on scenario, especially television with Star Trek. 5, Star Trek Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. That's 4 in the last 30 years with, 26 to 24 episodes a season? That's a lot, man. That's a lot of scenario. Plus all the other sci-fi shows on TV. And there's a ton on TV right now. There's movies that have been coming out in the last 10 years about visitation. The thing is a fundamental definition of intelligence would be, and it's been told to me several times, that anger is a sign of ignorance. Anger is a lack of intelligence. We all are susceptible to that from time to time, for sure. But I do believe that that's actually the case. That's why I don't think God has ever really been angry if God has ever shown him or herself on this planet. The Bible that makes him just a ranting, raving child. That's because the minds of the time needed that story to do what they are already supposed to do at birth. Be good. So you have these beings that could be wiping our Air Force out in a split second. They could even just do a demonstration of power. Why wait? There's no reason to wait. Now, the other thing that rings in the back of my head that I mentioned before, but I'm not sure how much I've mentioned it in the UAP conversation, is that gigantic, what was claimed to be a meteor coming in over Russia, of which I guess the Russian military czar dude said that is a weapon of the Central Intelligence Agency that they shot out of the sky, which was physically massive. When it exploded, it was traveling something like Mach 13 or something. It explodes. It blows out a ton of windows. Of course, they tell you that they found a rock that landed in a shallow lake. I think I even saw a picture of where they said it splashed into the water. But, how is it that amazing thing happens? And that rock isn't on display, right? Imagine you go to New York City, you're in New York City or Los Angeles, or it doesn't even matter, man. You're in Kansas or whatever, right? And here comes this thing. Whoa, it's Mach 13, blowing out the windows, boom, 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 with the sonic booms. And then, again, if you look really closely at the video, this little projectile goes extra fast into its insides, and that's when it explodes. It's from 2 different angles, 2 different sources. Everything can be faked, yeah, but it's pretty damn good if it was faked. But it catches up with it, blows it up. They said that they blew it up. That's some hypersonic crap right there, let me tell you. But let's say it's legit. It's a meteorite, and it lands in, I don't know, West Kansas, takes out a few cornfields or whatever, a cow or 2. And now you have this big rock. Well, let me tell you, depending on who seizes the rock from space, at some point it's going to be on display because it's just a rock from space, a really giant one that technically when it explodes, there should be pieces of that thing everywhere. Should be a tourist attraction to it. Maybe it's been created in Russia and I don't know about it. Seems like there's always a video of someone traveling around the world to film something. The volcano in Arizona that you can go visit. I've been there 6, 7, 8 times. I don't even remember. I've been there so many times. Well, you go into their little gift center and they've got, iron ore, rock, all boiled, sitting in the lobby. It's on display. They charge money. But if it was a weapon and it did damage to Russia, then there's an optic for the Russian military to say, yeah, we got this rock out of the lake, and that was it. That's all you need to know. What it really was is something else. And so they don't want to show that to their people. See how the CIA attacked us and got in on our land, and see how many windows it blew out, and see how formidable it was. And if they had actually slammed this into Moscow or St. Petersburg, we would have lost, 20 to 50 million people in a day. We didn't even realize it was a missile. We didn't realize it was a weapon. They don't want to tell anybody that. So I'm conflicted with that information as it pertains to, is this some sort of test run for a propulsion system? There's nothing UAP about it, in my opinion. For me, just with my novice eyes, it seemed to be way too big to be any vehicle. It seemed too slow to be a UAP. So then there's the other thing we forgot to mention in the other one. I say we. There are, and have been for the last 20 years, with this year being the anniversary of this event, rumors of very legitimate holographic projection mechanisms. The actual methodology of the holograms is always been speculated, because I have a very close friend who really, really pays attention to this, and another buddy of mine that worked on some state-of-the-art holograph technology as an investment person. Because of the two, and I'm sitting in the middle hearing the harmonic of the two voices, I don't... one technology is burning air and projecting on the air. Okay, that seems nice in a laboratory, seems nice perhaps on a stage where you might bring up Frankenstein to dance with Gene Wilder. The other technology absolutely won't work outside whatsoever. But there are people that believe that, and for me, being into special effects, I don't need this other technique at all. But they were saying that, what we saw on that September day of infamy weren't really the vehicles, but they were projections. That's a big John Lear thing. Because the people I have met who said they were there on that day said they saw things, and when further interviewed, they had to admit they didn't actually see them. They actually saw them on TV, even though they might have been a block away. Because the CG doesn't work, the geometry shifted shape, because the foreground objects or background objects are accidentally matted into the foreground. Cranes aren't matted out properly. When you stabilize the footage, the plane moves up and down. For those simple reasons, I will never believe that those vehicles were actually there. The kid who filmed them on top of the skyscraper also was staring right at the building, the second one, and said nothing hit it. And his footage doesn't have a lot of the debris. And he goes downstairs with his camera, and everyone on the ground said, they said it was a plane. And he goes, it was not a plane. It just exploded. It's like 5 minutes from the moment it happened. No one on the ground saw anything hit the building. 100 people. 100 people on the ground, if not 1,000 people on the ground, all going, they said it was a plane. And no one else around that guy said, no, I saw it. I saw it. No one said anything like that. So imagine CG being used, obviously, to introduce a bunch of fake evidence, right? We just proved to them that we have hit an all-time low in cognitive dissonance. I mean, we're an all-time high in cognitive dissonance and an all-time low in thinking for ourselves, being able to discern anything. It is pathetic, right? So we're ripe for the picking right now. That's the bummer. So it might be that us working together, we can see the logic of this. I would suggest having this conversation with as many people as you can who are interested. I think what you'll find is that when you say that there was a conspiracy hatched by, well, I should say, revealed by Werner von Braun in 78 to his assistant, and that's how you've got this story, and then it's been, sort of touched on for the last 4 decades and some change, you'll probably lose about 95% of the people staring at you across the table. For the 5 that will listen, they're going to be really new to the information, most likely. And so if you're interested in this episode, then you've probably been thinking about it too. And I'm just hitting you right in the right place, for you to go, oh yeah, that is weird, right? Only fly those things over military zones. I think one of the troubling factors is the sightings that are happening by normal citizens, quote unquote, and the fact that that's an extremely open orifice for disinformation. I would say they're not doing a tremendously fantastic job with it. Having a sighting with, if I were working for them, I'd say, look, you got to set up a shot where it's like, we need to map out a region of the world where the surveillance cameras of the area are all pointed down at the parking lot, nothing in the air. We have to create a path for this thing to fly so it has the minimum exposure to non-assets of ours, right? Black hats, right? And so because we can tap into most surveillance cameras, we're going to go ahead and pre-record what's going on. We're going to do a composite shot on one of the cameras. We'll have it all pre-matted out within that feed. So when a thing flies around, it does get caught in a few cameras. And then you have a gas station owner, convenience store owner, some warehouse owner, some guy who has a camera pointing out this backyard. And they do have right on their hard drive a composite of this alien ship going by. But then we plan all of our people to capture the shot and just test out how believable is a totally fake event that never occurred, handed in by our fake ops, our real ops as fake people, as real people. And we'll see how that rolls in the press, right? Why only fly in military zones? Because there's been a brand new report that a ship just splashed into the ocean and disappeared, and they went out trying to find debris, and there was nothing. Now, that's the Bill Cooper story from, I believe, 1967. I'm inclined to believe Bill Cooper 100%. He just seemed like a genuine guy, and I know he was selling stuff, technically speaking, but man, he was not pitching a happy story up to the day he died. Imagine that. Yes, there were people in the 70s, 80s, 90s, up till the day he was murdered in 2001. People would pay at a church, at a community center to listen to him talk about perhaps alternate theories of JFK's assassination. But is that really paying his bills? He had his Pale White Horse book. I'm telling you, man, books are not the way to make money. Yeah, if you're J.K. Rowling, yeah. But there's about probably 1 in 100 million people who make money like that. The rest of these folks sell books because that's what they love to do. And they're, they get a following for a little while. People don't read anymore. But he said he saw, I believe, 2 ships come out of the ocean and 2 ships go into the ocean. It's always by military. Now, again, the ocean is not a place that too many people travel in a non-professional capacity, right? They're either doing big tanker ships or they're military. Now, there's more, I would assume, tanker ships going back and forth, handling trade route issues than any level of destroyers, battleships, cruisers, whatever, aircraft carriers. So if you had this ship, well, one, if you're a freaking alien, wouldn't you buzz one of those ships? I mean, they have stories about these aircraft, these UAPs, sitting, flying next to some of the vehicles for over like an hour. Okay. I mean, do you have your cell phone on you? I mean, seriously, is there something you can do to get us a better picture? Now, I did criticize the the optics of some of these shots. Some of them have been said to have only occurred at night. The one that went over the shipyard, I believe, was during the day because you could see him switching the optic back and forth. There are a few daytime glowy pictures. Some look like almost caricature blimps. The one over the shipyard, if you pay attention to the footage and you don't know if you're dealing with artifacting from these crappy cameras they're giving you. I mean, What's My Line by 1962 had better cameras than our $20 to $60 million aircraft. I mean, it's just pathetic, man. They're trying to pawn this crap off. The color ones, we don't have any moving images of them that I've seen. And everybody can say, oh, well, they do. They've got them. Okay, well, why not show them to us, man? Show me a frame of it somehow protecting you against the scam. But the big thing that the Top Gun pilots have been saying is that they couldn't see any visible propulsion. Okay, that would make some sense. A gravity well technology working with ethereal winds may or may not create anything visual that you can see. That would also suggest that the gravity well that they are creating is literally paper thin on the outside of the vehicle. Because the second it starts gaining an inch, 2 inch, 6 inches, you're going to start seeing the distortion of light around the vehicle in the direction that it is traveling. But the one over the airfield, the naval yard, it had these weird moments where the artifact, the vehicle, whatever it was, which was not moving that fast, it seemed to have little spurts off of the artwork. It wouldn't be there, and then it would be there. And it's very, very reminiscent. That particular vehicle is very reminiscent of one I saw a video of, which was declassified. I don't even know if it was ever classified, but it was sort of a rockety kind of little drone thing that definitely was using lots of little spurts here and there to stay afloat. I don't know. Fuel is fuel is fuel. Once you have some sort of fuel, then you're going to have a much bigger vehicle to use the fuel, to hold the fuel to use, right? But if you have sort of Bob Lazar's element 115 theory, you've got a crystal that, when stimulated through some piezo effect, allows you to naturally create an electromagnetic field around the vehicle such that you create these gravity wells, however minute or large, and the vehicle slips into the void. Technically speaking, okay, if, for those of you who saw Dune, the movie back in the 80s, okay, I don't know if the new one's released yet, but the old one, there was the scene in the book where the warrior had a shield on him. I think there was a fight where they had these like rectangular shields. It was so well done in the 80s, man. It was sort of see-through, sort of not. If you can create this gravity well on a surface, it would probably survive a millimeter of distance around the edge, because as long as the ethereal particles that create gravity can't touch the vehicle, and it's saying, okay, I'm going to let you come up underneath me, because it's all about fluid dynamics, right? You can't hit the top surface because I need to go up, right? So, but you're going to go ahead and hit the bottom. Then you get almost this lift automatically, just like oil and water. Oil weighs less than water. But you can go the left side, the right side. You can create strobing fields around your vehicle using all kinds of sacred geometry. You get all kinds of wild stuff to occur. Now, one of the characteristics about the more ice cream coney vehicle they saw was that what the pilots were saying, and you have to take it all with a grain of salt, anything come out of the government's potentially very, very, very untrue, was that they said that one of the pilots said that they were like dealing with 150 mile an hour headwinds, aeronautical miles per hour sort of thing. And this vehicle was just seemingly easily going into the wind and then adjusting attitude without any seeming issue dealing with the resistance of air. With this type of engine, that's exactly what would occur. You are slicing through it like a white hot knife through butter. There is no resistance. It simply gets out of the way. But you think about the fact that we are talking about convincing every major power in the world to get on board, which means every major power in the world has to have a benefit plan for getting on board. China, you get this. Russia, you get this. I'm sure the EU sees itself as the architect of the whole thing, even if they might be using American know-how. Who knows? We know because of the press, the control of the press, and the control of banking and the control of resources, that there is sort of for the lack of a better analogy, a dark web that they use to communicate with each other. Like big logistical stuff, not Nancy Pelosi sending Chuck Schumer a text message through a video game chat using Eric Schmidt's backbone. So you would have to somehow either have a Bilderberg meeting, have some sort of summit, of which is not televised, using proxies and not key officials, so Putin never shows up, a proxy shows up, etc. down the line. And there's going to have to be a tremendous amount of trust. The amount of people that would be informed you would absolutely have to logistically keep this the most handcuffed briefcase situation in world history. You would have individuals at the top of these organizations who were not informed. I mean, even the day it's occurring, the morning it's going to occur, they're not going to be informed, but they are going to be suspect. Because this is not a new rumor for anyone who's in the defense business. I'm sure the top commanders of Russia and the top commanders of the CCP, they're no dummies, man. They've heard of this theory. I'm sure they've heard of these theories. But it almost has that stigma to it in a way that you wouldn't think at some sort of world summit that anyone would kind of go, hey, we heard you guys are working on a UFO thingy-majiggy. You mind telling us what you're thinking? No one's going to ask that question, because then the other side of the table just goes, what are you, crazy? They could easily fall back into that plan. But there's another element to it, which is a little more far-fetched, but it's, for me, it's based on that Project Disclosure interview with the sort of the Mexican-American guy who, I think it was in Chile. He's the one that said that he was called to go to a wrecked UFO. Shows up, sees the UFO, has a really wild sort of telepathic message from the beings in sight, said everyone else there had the same thing. And then he said this key thing. He looks over to the east, and here comes a bunch of vehicles that land. He said these things did not use rockets, did not have propellers, did not have jet engines. They were silent. They land. And he said some black uniform dudes came out with no insignias for the United States of America. I don't think I had that story right. But he said the weird thing was they spoke fluent English, like they were American, with American accents, which he was American. And they were really pissed off at him and threatened him and all this other stuff. Why tell that story? Well, that suggests if he's telling the truth, I mean, you got to see this interview, man. I got to find it and put it in the description. I got to put it in the suggested content on the website. He said, look, man, he was just so believable. He didn't waver telling the story. He didn't have like those telltale signs he's lying. But that would suggest that there's a shadow government that is like at a level that we don't know anything about, okay? And that's where we get sort of for me personally, for those who study flat Earth, and again, this could be round globe, but it's like flat for us, and we're under a contact lens, and it's very specifically that way because there's a map of the world, where there are other continents. There's more land around the outside of the ice barrier than there are continents on the inside. And it beckons to that story of the guy that I believe showed up in the Japanese airport trying to go someplace that didn't exist in our world. And eventually that dude disappears. And they think he left behind his luggage or something, which has some weird stuff in it, plus a map of these other continents. So you create a world where no one can get out. It's big, so you don't feel like you need to get out. You tell them a story about where they really are. Could be based partly on truth, could be based completely on bullshit. But they live on the outside. And maybe they're the people that build pyramids in a day. For whatever reason, the base of operation, they like limestone. I don't know. The fables of resetting the culture in Babylonia, the people that came out of the hills, never said ships. How everyone got spread out so evenly on all the continents. How anyone found Easter Island in Hawaii. The question is always, would we do the same thing? If we had a lot of land and we had the power because of technology to create an experiment in the center of a petri dish, most intellectuals would probably say, well, conceptually, yes, we might do that. On a sociological level, we'd say, of course not, because look at all the suffering on the inside of this dish. No one should suffer. Don't know. But if there were a group on the outside running the stuff on the inside, again, doesn't explain all the mistakes they make, like I always say, but they do like this periodic visit, periodic reset. They are from where we are, but they're not from where we are, if you know what I mean. I just think that generic application of a true outside entity coming into our realm would be seen everywhere all the time. If they're going to come back, if this is going to happen. You would not have a pilot saying we saw one every single day for 2 years and no citizen can claim the same thing. I got Catalina Island, like less than 20 miles from where I'm sitting. People live out there. There's buffaloes roaming out there. We got people up and down the coast in their multi-million-dollar homes with their $20,000 to $100,000 reflector telescopes. Every camera imaginable. Some photographers live on the coast out there. Directors, cinematographers, they have plenty of equipment, man. Now, there are obviously claims everywhere. Maybe some of them are real. Maybe they're not. But the second that one country doesn't want to be involved with this, it goes tits up real fast. Say Russia goes, man, we don't have anything to do with this, and don't be flying your shit over our country. Okay. So it happens, and they try to orchestrate it. Such like, okay, we can't fly anything over Russia. We don't want any issues, but you know what? We're going to have a few guys take some plate shots, just like when we want to fake that Robert Redford's in Moscow or something like that. And we're going to superimpose it, broadcast it. They may not like it, but whatever. Well, then you're at a huge risk of Russia saying this isn't real. And you can't put any vehicles in Moscow because we'll shoot it down. We'll grab it. I did try to get in sort of a soft manner, some sort of connection with Dr. Stephen Greer, because I think it'd be a great time to have a conversation with him. Apparently, he won't talk to anyone. I believe that the real way to say this, in all due respect, he won't talk to anyone who can crack his code. He likes to stay with people that are pre-censored, because apparently he's been introduced to a ton of people that have the power to break down his stories and break down his claims, and he won't talk to them. But that dude takes people out in the desert. They stand on rocks. I mean, it's a very beautiful spiritual thing he does. I have all the respect in the world for what he's doing. I just want to, hey, if it's real, you shouldn't have any problem pulling in some folks to experience it that aren't already sitting with, a million crystals hanging off their walls at their house, right? But his thing is he sees them all the time. He's like Whitley Strieber on crack, man. Okay. Well, then you should know what their intent is. I mean, literally, his next movie, and maybe he's making it, should be the UAP thing. But if you really look at the life story of Whitley Strieber when he released Communion, was it Communion Breakthrough and Transformation? I think that's the technical order. Could have the last two backwards. He is doing, well, what he did was he just monopolized on his first book and he created more perception. But his stuff was super dark. It was like if your kid got kidnapped by some child trafficker of the elite, his book says, no, that wasn't Epstein. That was a blue alien, That's convenient, isn't it, right? But nothing positive, not like Arthur C. Clarke writing the 2001 series, right? 2010. I think he did 2049. I think he obviously 3001. That was always virtuous, aliens good, humans still learning sort of thing, right? The reason why this fascinates me so much is this is a big one. If they were to ever pull this off, and I do think, in my heart of hearts, just so you know, they could pull this off right now, today. Instead of making it a world invasion situation to then have to deal with all the logistics, even the EU might say, okay, we're not going to be involved with this in terms of stuff flying through the Eiffel Tower and around Big Ben and all that kind of stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to have something like one of the plot points of, I don't know if it's season 1 or season 2 of Enterprise from Star Trek. Again, if you haven't seen a show that debuted in 2001 and in 2005, I'm assuming you're never going to watch these shows. So a little spoiler alert there. There's an amazing scene because they have Enterprise is a prequel to the 60s. Scott Bakula is the captain. Great crew, great writing, amazing. Julian Blaylock. Okay. So this race, the Xindies, which is actually a collection of races, I think, because there's a council very much like Star Wars 1, where, they sit in that council room and talk. But we go out into space before we've actually vetted what it means, and Bakula's father created the Enterprise. He ends up flying the thing, and so they go out and they bump into all these alien races without protocol. Freak them out. I think maybe through some butterfly effect cause some bad things to occur. So they send, it's almost like a Douglas Adams thing. They send this round ball thing to come at planet Earth. Now, I'm not suggesting that this plot line is going to happen to us necessarily, but this is how isolated it could be. We're talking about, for us, it's just going to be a visual thing. That's it. So don't take any of this literally. But you're just watching an episode. You're just like, oh, this is cool. And all of a sudden, this thing transforms and this laser beam comes out and hits Florida and just draws a line up Florida it just kills like 7 million people or something like that. And I think the ship's engineer, Trip, his sister died in the beam. So a bunch of people died. And then Starfleet is blamed for it. The Enterprise is blamed for it. They try to ground the Enterprise. But now the game is on that if they don't go deeper into space and find these Indies and apologize and make peace with them, they're going to come back and destroy the entire planet. And so this is the plot, which keeps Star Trek Enterprise was actually episodical, more so than all the other series, even though Q did have like a timeline that went through Next Generation. So forget the attack. The only thing like that's going to take place. Although, could you imagine? But if there was a big line that this vehicle drove, it shows up in Earth's atmosphere, and it just takes a really strategic path through the atmosphere. Low enough we can see it. It does fly over New York. It does fly over Los Angeles. Tens of millions of people film this thing. And then it just takes back off and goes up into space. Well, at that point, it didn't really make contact with anybody. It just happened to fly over North America. But, they could fly it over Cairo. They could fly it over the South America where there's no weapons that could knock it out of the sky. So it does visit other places, right? Again, one of the best examples of this exact scenario, is the day the Earth stood still. Act 1, Scene 1. There's all these radio announcers in different languages covering this flying disc that comes into Earth's atmosphere, flies by, buzzes every place popular in the world. And so you got a Russian announcer, Japanese guy, Latin person, European, North America. Of course, it lands in a baseball field in Washington, D.C. That kind of thing, without the landing, could be a way to isolate the event in a way that everyone swallows it, who's going to swallow it. And anyone who sees this thing with their own eyes, could you imagine the rift that would happen with perhaps one of us. Let's say it flies over me, and I see it with my own eyes. So, you're thinking there's 7.5 billion people in the world, and this thing flies over so many regions of the world, especially Latin America, which still believes in mythical beings. You would have a rift in the psychology of religious people. You would have people all over the United States who would buy it 100%, even if they did believe in Jesus. And then how do you hang on to your religion at the same time? You would have, obviously, your SpaceX people, your NASA people, your JPL people, all the military people would be just jumping on this thing like it was Christmas, man. But you would total up how many people saw it, because you could probably do some basic, math of like how many people looking up could see this thing. They could have orchestrated 2 or 3 of these things. Russia could still say that wasn't real. That was their stupid conspiracy that they finally executed. And then what would happen to Russia? Russia, as an entire country, would obviously have citizens that would believe it too. They would be demonized as the conspiracy theorists, they're the conspiracy theorists, right? Because everyone else believes it's not a conspiracy. So if you've ever told anybody, hey, you may not want to take a shot this year, give it a little while, give it a couple of years, then do it, they're going to turn to that guy. Isn't it interesting when we break down the logistics of this potential thing? For those of you who are very analytical and very logistical yourself, the magnitude of orchestrating such a thing or anything like this is so massive. Let me propose something as a question. For those of you who believe that September 11th was definitely not who they said it was, we still ask the question, well, why didn't Russia say something? Why didn't China say something? Why didn't somebody say something who has no affiliation with the benefits, the financial benefits of invading Eurasia and stealing all the oil, just like Zygmunt Brzezinski's book, The Grand Chessboard, or The Grand Chess Game, right? I struggle with that one myself. It's sort of like, they just do that thing. They're not going to bother us as a result of their little shenanigan over there. China's not going to get attacked. Russia's not going to get attacked. Now, Russia did sort of Russian to protect the their stake in the Middle East, because everybody buys oil in there. They just kind of keep quiet. But I think it has to do with the same thing that you and I deal with when it comes to mentioning a conspiracy in general. You don't want to get labeled for whatever reason. But I think it's very interesting when countries do reveal things and they say, nah, that guy didn't shoot Kennedy. These 20 people did. A whole country can say that. Again, a buddy of mine in the UK went through high school, I believe, in the 70s. He flat out told me, he goes, they taught me in school with all the other kids that your intelligence agency did it. They don't teach us Lee Harvey Oswald other than he's the patsy. I mean, I haven't heard anyone else tell me that, but this dude does not lie, and he's an extremely brilliant dude. So it's like, oh, that's weird. That's really strange. Isn't that funny? You just told me something, and if I repeat it to anyone else, no one's going to believe me? And you're not even a conspiracy person? The other question I have is sort of just the logistic of where would these things take off from? The other question I have is, if these things exist in any capacity, are they capable of getting other places that we're not even talking about? Let's say you got a UFO. It's man-made. It uses ethereal engines, maybe even uses 115. Who the hell knows? But however they can get it done, I guarantee you generals just say, get it done. I don't care if it's radioactive, it kills everybody underneath it. I want to see this thing run, because if you can prove your theory, even if the thing only flies for 5 minutes, we'll go ahead and give you the money to build one that's clean. I think that's probably what happened a long time ago with these people that saw these flying triangles, vehicles being escorted by military helicopters, and it's like radioactive, hurts everybody down below. People actually got sick. Some people died as a result of their infections from this stuff. Wrong word, but metaphorically. But you got a problem because you've lied about being places in space. Still no rovers on the moon from us. But you want to believe they're on Mars. Yeah. But if you wanted to reconstruct the scene up there, as I was thinking about this, I was thinking, just simply getting there is not going to solve your problem, because there's two different ways to do this. And I can't believe I didn't think of the second method until just recently, but the idea is you create a vehicle and you open up a door and you do have decent suits and you kind of move things out. You're not even touching the ground, man. You don't even make any footprints up there, but you get out the kickstand for the Apollo landers. You roll out a buggy. You even drive it around a little bit with remote control. You leave it there, take the remote control unit off of it. Whatever you got to do to try to build these sets. Problem is they reuse sets, and so the mountainscapes aren't going to match and all that kind of stuff. So you really can't win the battle. I don't think the surface looks like their surface, right? But if they could figure out a way and a place to just take a couple shots from a couple little locations, not all the 6 landing sites, but just a few of them. Again, it's not going to match the photographs, and I don't even think anybody cares, right? But you could attach it to the bottom of a vehicle and carry it all the way there and just let it go. And then do whatever you got to do logistically. They could rebuild the sets that way. What I haven't heard, and maybe you guys have heard this, the search in YouTube is so shadow banned. I mean, you really can't find what the hell you're looking for anymore. I just think their keyword systems are just really bad at this point. But so I've seen a 60-minute special. I've seen another one like 60 Minutes, talking to these pilots. Again, I think the pilots genuinely, so far, most of them I think are legit in terms of what they saw and what they think it is. One guy's a little suspect. The guy who said he saw one every day for 2 years, I think he might be maybe not legit, maybe he is, I don't know. Don't mean to cast aspersions on anybody. But why haven't we had, Putin asks the question. Putin will sit down with the press for 2 hours and speak in 3 or 4 different languages. I mean, it's cool. When I ask that guy, is this stuff real? All those Americans pulling our legs, It wasn't hard to get the information out during that meteor thing. Immediately hit the press. Considering that, I guess RT will give us information from their end. I haven't been to their website in almost a year. It's their whatever news, right? But we've had this report that's supposed to come out thanks to 45, that this, briefing was supposed to happen to the senators. Rubio is championing this whole thing. And, they're supposed to tell us a bunch of information about these vehicles. And so they've admitted that they exist. They've admitted that there's plenty of sightings of which we have no origin for. Not willing to say it's extraterrestrial because, technically speaking, if it was even your job and you're a good person, you won't have enough information. You just know that there was a vehicle up there. You have no explanation for it. And it's not you. And you don't think your enemies are capable of pulling that off. Again, China can't create the engines for the Raptor models that they stole. Well, that pretty much kicks them out of the game. We've been at this for longer than China has been modern, okay, with computers and that kind of stuff. They're very modern today, right? But we've been working on this for a very, very long time, according to von Braun. Russia. Russia would be the number one candidate to pull something off. Now, again, there was a lot of rumors about, and again, it's funny how, trying to figure out how to put this into words. The internet has a heartbeat, doesn't it? Mandela effect comes and goes. Poof. Bigfoot does its surge. Poof, gone. Conspiracies come and go as people gain interest and then feign their interest. So in that camp is the sort of romantic chapter in the Nazis' technology that, Everybody was anybody, including Hitler himself, was always interested in the dark arts. They were interested in hidden technology, perhaps tomes of things that were found. And again, man could have been here in the past in some way, shape, or form. Don't know how they built the pyramids. Don't know how they built all those underground tunnels. Definitely don't think they're associated with the people that are there currently today, because then they would be the most advanced culture on planet Earth. I mean, it would put Atlantis to shame. And just to round that off for your brain, having built the pyramids that aren't in any of the hieroglyphs, okay, which means they come after the hieroglyph era, which really just boggles the freaking mind, right? I've been thinking about that every single day since I reported it to you, and I cannot, for the life of me, give you a scenario that's even extraordinary and crazy that explains it, other than the hieroglyph era goes back hundreds of thousands of years, and these other things were generated after by a culture that didn't feel the need to inscribe the stone with who the hell they were and how the hell they did it, and who, like anything about themselves. Basalt boxes with no writing on them except some recent etchings, on the outside. But if you were to take America as it exists in 2021 and simply pick it up in time in some Doctor Who episode and move it back to, say, 2500 BC, not that far, and say, okay, go. Where do you think we would be 5,000 years later if we didn't kill ourselves or get killed by somebody else? But how could you kill us? We would have all the weapons in the world. Be like, what was it? I don't think it was the Philadelphia Experiment. It was either that or some other movie like it. No, it was a different movie where an aircraft carrier went back in time and they thought about stopping the Pearl Harbor invasion. So whoever built that is gone. Like, it's almost like they left gone, not just gone. Because as much as Greece and Rome were amazing accomplishments in construction history, it's not the delta up from the pyramids and all those catacombs that are probably up to, I'm going to say, easily a quarter mile, if not half a mile into the ground, running the whole distance of Egypt, maybe even further. I mean, who the hell knows? We won't dig it up. And why won't we dig it up, right? So, like Bob Lazar said in an interview with Joe Rogan, when the rumor went around, which is, where the hell did these ships come from? Because, again, his first story was there's 9 of them. 8 of them had damage on them. Like they'd been shot by missiles or something. Not radar, but missiles. Could have been. He said it was very acute damage on them. He doesn't say this story anymore. He says there's only 8. He worked on the 9th one, which had no damage. And he even speculated maybe they built it, but then when he got inside, he was like, no. Again, I don't believe Bob's entire story. But, sometimes you go with it just so you can pick at other strings of logic, right? But he said that they were potentially, the rumor came around that they were potentially dug up, that they were archaeological finds. That's interesting, right? Where the hell you would find them, I don't know. We have all those stories from the past about giants and pygmies, very credible folks. Could it be that they would dig up this sort of vehicle and in every single case, let's say there's 8 of them, no one said anything? There's old diagrams of flying vehicles from the time before Christ was even rumored to have existed that certainly look like the UFOs we have today. It looks like they've accounted for gravity voids and ethereal wind technology. So, then it begs the question, okay, any one of us in 2021 can get a pad and paper, learn how to draw, and draw a space vehicle that makes sense, like Sid Mead used to do for movies. Then you put that away somewhere in a library, in some safety deposit box, in some time capsule somewhere. You don't tell anybody. And then it gets dug up 2,000 years from now. And someone goes, oh, look, they used to have this technology because look at this blueprint right here. And wow, it makes a bunch of sense. And we've discovered this technology since then. But it's just an illustration. It's a design somebody had. Like I was told recently by a Rembrandt painter friend of mine, Leonardo was credited with all these inventions. I mean, tons of inventions that he scribed in beautiful form. And now the history has been revealed that he hung out with a community of inventors who actually paid him to draw their ideas on paper. Now, he's a smart dude as well. And it could be that someone hires you for idea 1, someone hires you for idea 2, and you make idea 3 in the middle. So some of those are yours and some of those are just paid contracts. If he's like Sid, I mean, imagine someone finding Sid stuff and not realizing what movies are. I was just at his house the other day, and it's like, we have thousands of little drawings of what this dude did. And a lot of them are abandoned concepts. So they don't match whatever made it to the film. Those were the bad ideas he didn't like. All right, well, you get those and you misconstrue them. And then you've invented history. Keep that in mind as you see things from the past, quote unquote. I mean, the more I was looking at this Atlantean Gardens guy who's got a really interesting channel. He's very thorough in some areas, but he's very biblical. And he will attach fairy tales with reality in a heartbeat, just no problem. And it just starts to undermine anything else that dude says. It's like, oh, really? The Tooth Fairy came from Santa Claus and made the Easter Bunny? What? It's just like, it's that bad sometimes. And that just breaks my heart because it's like, dude, you got a good mind. You're really researching stuff. Now take out fairy tale and fable, ridiculous claims of reality, and stop trying to stretch things and connect things that you don't even know. People talking about ice ages. We have no proof of ice ages. We got some rolled rocks. Whoop-de-doo. The ocean levels go up and down. Won't entertain any other alternate theories that are based on mega science, observable science. Nope, I read this fairy tale book and it said this thing, so I'm just going to keep that and then attach an ice age to it all of a sudden. Once you're gullible, man. Anyway, I thought this was good food for thought. There's a lot more to this little hoax than I think we've actually analyzed, and I certainly haven't heard anyone go into the detail that we've gone into in the last 2 episodes, so I thought, let's advance the conversation. Be interested in your comments. The comments are off the chain right now. You guys have commented so much and so many great comments. It's going to take me a little while to get through them. Although I think I have a little break here coming up. So I'm going to have some time. Let's just put it that way. So I'm going to give you guys some more stuff. Anyway, if you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. It's got everything on it. To all the Patreons and PayPal folks, thank you so much. We did have a gentleman approach me about putting the podcast on his service. If he can hear my voice, feel free to advertise that in the comments. Anyway, take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.